Hi guys, welcome to the Felicity Yarn Studio channel. My name is Zoe, also known as Zoe Nichols on social media, and we are here today with another FO feature. So today we will be talking about my Stalactite sweater. Now, if you are new to the channel or you have stumbled across this video, this is where I like to talk about my recently finished projects, kind of recap everything, my thoughts and experiences, so that everything is in an easy to find format so you don't have to sift through a bunch of different podcast episodes if you want to piece together information on like one specific pattern. So yes, we are talking about the Stalactite sweater. I have talked about this on a lot of podcast episodes. This is a pattern by Camille Rosselle. It was in an issue of Laine Magazine, I believe in issue 4. I did not buy the whole magazine. I just purchased this one individual pattern for download on Ravelry, and I believe it was somewhere between $6 and $8 with the conversion from the euro. So for my main color, I used some Croft 29, and this is some wool that I picked up at the Edinburgh Yarn Festival last March 2019. They were vending during their Make Wool event, which was on Sunday, and it was just kind of a smaller, more low-key event where they had more like artisanal products and things there. So this is Hebridean wool from the Isle of Skye, and it is like a natural black. It's more of a brown than a black, but they call it black on the sheet. And then for the accent color here, I used Brooklyn Tweed Shelter and the Foothills colorway. So it's a pretty like greeny, yellowy gray color. Stalactites is a top-down raglan sweater. There is some shaping along the back of the neckline, or I think you do like the sleeve, the back and the sleeve, and do some short row shaping, and then you add the front in, and then you add the neckline later. I did have some gauge issues with this pattern, and that was my own fault for not doing a proper gauge swatch to begin with. So the pattern calls for 21 stitches per 4 inches, and I was getting about 18 stitches per inch. However, I did not realize this till I was about halfway through the body and halfway through a sleeve. I was aiming for the largest size, which was the 49.5 inch bust, and my bust was coming out closer to like 65 inches around. So I was swimming in this. I probably would have run out of yarn also. So I did the math and I worked it out to where I would need to knit the size large, which is like the 45 3/4 inch bust. And yes, still wind up with a little bit of ease, and I'm actually very pleased with the fit now. This is like exactly what I was going for when I started this. I did use the recommended needle size, which was size 7 on the body and size 5 for the neckline and the cuff and the hem. This yarn is listed as DK weight yarn, but it definitely knits up closer to like a worsted, almost an Aran gauge, and I believe that's just because it is a worsted spun. No, not worsted, a woolen spun. Woolen is like the Brooklyn Tweed, where it's just a lighter, fluffier yarn. I understand the differences in my mind, but I'm not going to try to explain the differences between woolen and worsted spun here for y'all. Yes, other than my gauge issues, I did not seem to have a ton of problems with this pattern. I did have to rip back to right before this first slip stitch pattern. But after that, it was pretty much smooth sailing for me. You do need to use a little bit of intuitiveness as far as placing the slip stitches on the sweater. The chart, I don't think the chart is correct, or at least it's inverted from the way that my mind would have laid it out. And I think there are other people on Ravelry who have also pointed this out, but it just takes a little bit of common sense and like stopping and thinking for a moment rather than just kind of blindly following the pattern. Basically, you just want to think about having your slip stitches offset from one another so they're not always lining up directly from the previous repeat. And I will say it did take a little bit of concentration on the sleeves to kind of think about with the decreases, making sure you have enough of the like plain stitches in between when you needed to work a decrease, if that makes sense. I did a slightly less rapid decrease on my sleeves. I think instead of every 3 rows, I did it every 4 rows. Just because I didn't want it to be super tight. I had always planned to knit this garment and wear it as more of an outerwear garment with a long sleeve t-shirt underneath. So that was something that I was taking into consideration. And when I did the decreases, I still only decreased down to the 2X size, which I believe was like 50 stitches. And as always, I did go ahead and make the body slightly longer than what was suggested in the pattern. I think it's considered a cropped pattern, but I don't really wear crops. So I just kind of knit it to a length that I know that I like my sweaters to be, usually about 16 or 17 inches in the body. And I think I did about 17-inch sleeves as well. This one's slightly shorter than some of my other sweaters, but I'm okay with it. I actually really like the fit of this one. I kind of like where it hits on my hips. Yeah, and this wool, again, this wool is pretty toothy and rustic. So I always knew I wanted to wear a long sleeve shirt underneath. For me, I don't feel prickliness around my neck so much as on the inner part of my elbow with these kinds of wools. And it does call for like a mock turtleneck, but that really isn't my style. So I just opted for the 2-inch or so bit of ribbing. I just kind of did it until it was a length that I was happy with. So yeah, I was outside taking some footage of this for y'all today, and it's like 40 degrees and breezy, but this was really like the perfect amount of layering and warmth. So I'm really happy that I was able to finish this before winter is officially over here. And yeah, I'll probably be living in this for the next month or so. So overall, I do think that an adventurous beginner could knit this pattern without really having any problems. Just some things to keep in mind. Again, always do a gauge swatch. That being said, gauge swatches do lie, but also just remember to try on your garment periodically as you're making it. It's a lot of time and a lot of money that most of us aren't investing into these things. So I really think it's beneficial to try it on frequently and make sure you're getting the fit that you're happy with. And again, worst comes to worst, you can always just rip back and do it all over again. So yeah, my biggest obstacles with this was my own folly. So don't be like me, do a proper gauge swatch, try your knits on. I did do that. But my only other like slight road bump that I doubt anybody else is going to encounter with this is we have a black cat named Brevin, and he's actually more like this, like black in that if you put him in the direct sunlight, he's kind of brown. And he has the thing for camouflaging himself. He has a brown blanket that he sleeps on constantly. So every time I pulled out my sweater to work on it, like before I could actually pick it up, he had already like made a nest and would like pass out immediately on this sweater. So I have leftovers, and even though it is super special wool, he's probably gonna get something made out of some of my leftovers. Okay guys, that is about it. I have talked about this so many times on the podcast, and I will be recording a new episode early next week, so if I've forgotten anything, I'll be sure to include it there. But if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below, and I will do my best to help you guys out. And if you like this video and this format, give it a thumbs up. Feel free to subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate it, and I will see you guys again shortly with a new video. Bye!